So, hello everyone, and welcome to the engineering panel. Here we have
Hello.
Austin
Jumped the gun
and
there, sorry.
Izzy. No,
Hey,
that's okay. Uh, First, I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves. So, if you'd like to start, Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Austin. I'm originally from Texas. If you can guess where that name is from, you get points. Um, I have been gaming for a long time. I took some gaming classes in high school, like game programming classes in high school, and fell in love with it. Chose for it to be my major at WPI, and have done a couple internships over my college career, and I'm hoping to share some of that information with you guys.
Spectacular. And Izzy, if you'd like to tell
yep.
the audience about yourself.
I'm Izzy Jones. I am a technical designer and gameplay engineer at Secret Door, which is part of the company Dreamhaven. I have been working at Secret Door for 4 years. Before I was at Secret Door, I got my master's in interactive media at USC. Before that, I got my bachelor's in computer science and math from Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, California. I also did game classes in high school, and it was one of those things where I was like, this is a great opportunity to do a big spread of a bunch of different things I love. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know a lot of the folks in the audience are from UC as well. Spectacular. So I'm just going to dive straight into the questions. Um, you guys feel free to jump in whenever you want. Um, First thing I'm going to ask is what first made you all interested in game development, and why have you stayed in this industry?
I guess I'll go first because I was introduced first or something. I don't know how we want to
Yeah, go on.
not interrupt each other, but I was introduced to games very young as a kid. I had a Wii, and I played all the classics like Super Smash Brothers Brawl and that sort of thing. My brother would always like kick my ass at the. Oh, are we allowed to swear? Sorry, I'm not gonna do that in the future. Okay. Um, okay. Anyway, I'd um, I've always been the type to wonder like how things are made. So plus there was this motivation that like I had limited screen time as a kid. It was called We Time, and I figured if I made my own game, I could play it like as much as I wanted. So I it was the perfect timing because like game engines like Unity and stuff were just starting to get a community, and I was able to find a tutorial to make like a basic platformer. And even though I understood like none of what was happening, it was really fun to see it come together. So I like took some classes in high school and made it my major in college, and it's history from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like a lot of people, I played a lot of games growing up. I can very specifically track back the first time I started thinking about it as like a thing that a person could actually do in terms of I want to say 2008, 2009, when Cave Story Plus was released for the Wii, which is the Wii remaster of the video game Cave Story. And I really loved the art that I saw in Game Informer magazine. And I ended up playing Cave Story, not actually Cave Story Plus, just Cave Story online, because you can download it for free. You can still download it for free. And when I realized one person made Cave Story, one person did all of the art, all of the engineering, all of the audio, everything for Cave Story, this Japanese dev Pixel. It was the first time I realized and really thought about this is a thing someone makes, right? This is a thing someone commits to. This is a thing someone uses as a creative medium. So that was the first time I thought of it as, again, something someone can actually do and commit themselves to. It wasn't then when I said, oh, this is the thing I'm going to do with my life. It was something I wanted to do some of. So again, in high school, I took some classes. I did like little programs at the Boys and Girls Club. DigiPen in Washington has summer classes and during the year classes for K through 12. So I did a few summer classes in robotics and game design and art. I was really across the board. It was only when I was getting closer to graduating, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself, frankly. Um, but I came to realize, there's so many different things I'm interested in terms of like math, literature, art. Uh, that I was like, games are this place that can kind of bring all those things together, right? But also, I knew that I could fail. I knew that I could fail and that if I failed, it would be bad for my wallet. So I got a bachelor's in computer science because it felt like the thing that could lead into games that could also lead into other things if the game's path didn't work out.
Yeah.
But then after 4 years in undergrad, I was like, I don't want to work on OneDrive. I have no interest in doing enterprise tech. So I am all in on games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
think that was the
absolutely.
second part of the question, which oh, did you say
No,
this
no,
part?
good. Go on.
Like why we stayed in the industry, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
uh yeah, I agree with you there that like games are like way more fun in my opinion to program and to like work with than like OneDrive or whatever because like um you get to like see things break in all these crazy ways. You get to implement all this like really talented art, and you get to like work with really talented people. I stay in it largely for the people. Like I think that a side effect of games being so competitive is that like the people who do make it are like really talented and like also incredible team players because like to make a game you have to really be like locked in together uh and like communicating constantly and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, the people in games are great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can sympathize a lot with both of you. I mean, I, my thought with like, I also did computer science for a bachelor's for much the same reason as Izzy, but definitely I love games because of the people I get to work with, and it's hard to think about, doing something else. Um, but so I guess to carry on, um, what kind of technical skills do you all think are the most in demand right now?
So I
So
was
you go ahead.
so I was talking to my fellow panelists before this. This is a hard one to answer. There are other questions further on about like the state of the industry that I think make a lot of this up in the air. But I also think the reality is a lot of the things that have been relevant in games in terms of disciplines continue to be relevant. There's always going to be people who need to be doing networking. There's always going to be need to be people who do audio. There's always going to need to be gameplay engineers and UI UX engineers and all those sorts of things. I think there's been a shift to some degree over time, whereas the tools mature and develop, you need fewer people that are on like the machine level of code and system and engineering. Again, you still need those people, but you need fewer of those people, and you can shift more people towards front end and working with designers and working with artists and working with like the minutia of how do we make like this creative work and how do we remove barriers from creatives to doing interesting things. That's part of why, I get to be sort of a technical designer in my current position. But really, any technical discipline you can think of, there's still demand for. But I think it's pretty hard to specify how much demand because it really varies by studio, it varies by genre, it varies by a lot of things. So it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that in general, no matter what specialty you're doing, I came across this concept called a T-shaped specialist, which like I'll explain it briefly. Like if you wanted to just be like the best possible writer and do like nothing else, then you'd be an I-shaped specialist because you're only focused on writing like through and through. If this top part is like how or the vertical axis is like how much you know on a subject, and the horizontal axis is like how your knowledge across different subjects, like neighboring subjects, like design or like implementation. So a T-shaped specialist still is pretty focused on their core specialty, but like knows enough about their surrounding specializations that like they can still talk about the implementation and like the the minutia of like how it's going to be implemented in game or like how it's going to affect the game. So that is valuable in the games industry specifically because like it's so interconnected that and the product is so complicated that like in order to make like a cohesive product, you need, or in order to like implement what you want as your specialty to the fullest, you need to communicate with others to like get that in there. And outside of like that's just general knowledge I think that would help you in like an interview or whatever. But I'd say for like specific roles, if I had to guess, I took a look at the GDC State of the Industry for this year, 2026, and 70% of it is like just two engines. It's just Unity and Unreal. So if you wanted to take a bet, then I would go with Unity or Unreal as a game engine expert because like I've been asked multiple questions like specific to game engines on my interviews. And if you are still like at the point in your life where you can like pick a specialty and really just want to be in games no matter what, but want a job no matter what, I'd go either UI programmer because like it I find it fun, but it's not glamorous. You don't like get the same credit that like someone who works on the character movement or like the art would get, but it's still really, really needed, especially depending on the genre that you're working in. And if you're working in Unreal UI, I would learn Common UI. And another good one that, as you said, is a network programmer like client server interaction. That's pretty good. But yeah, I think there's still opportunities for most fields though.
Yeah, those are some useful specifics, but also completely understand. I mean, it's always useful to have a good understanding of everything, you know, because
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah,
come to, no matter what you're doing, you're probably gonna have to implement some kind of system or something that interacts with, you know, something that's useful to have
yeah.
knowledge about. Um, so, our next question, what skills do you value most in yourself and in other teammates?
I mean, I think games are such a collaborative medium. Games are inherently multimedia, right? You need engineers, you need artists, you gain a lot of value from designers and audio people. But all these people are people from very different technical backgrounds, right? There's not really a lot of overlap in how people with like traditional educations and those things talk about their work. So there's a lot of learning about like how do we talk about these things, how do we prioritize these things, how do we balance these things. And I think being willing to learn, being willing to compromise, understanding how to communicate reasonable trade-offs, I think are always very valuable in terms of being able to speak cross-disciplinarily. And I think that has always been in high demand for games, but I think continues to be in demand for games. Um, I would say this relates to kind of the state of the industry now, where there's like a lot of high saturation. There are so many games, and I think even the big studios are realizing that there's kind of money to be made and trying to make smaller, faster things so you can like get stuff out quicker and like get reactions to it. And that inherently means there are going to be more small to mid-sized teams even inside of bigger studios, which I think means it's even more valuable to learn how to talk to people outside of your discipline or your background, whether you're an engineer or anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think in other people, I definitely value their and in myself too. I value like their collaboration and their communication, like because collaboration is like how you ask for help when you need it, and how that like makes a better, or communication is how you ask for help when you need it, and that like makes a better end product, and like it leverages both it leverages like who you're talking to and yourself leverages both your strengths to like create something better than you could have made just by yourself. And I think in addition to that, like what you bring to the table is your taste and your problem solving. Like your taste is like what separates you from everyone else because it's built on your life experiences and like your personal tastes. And your problem solving is like how you get there. It's like uh what you do to solve the hundreds of problems that come up when trying to get to your goal of like I want this camera to be fast and like snappy, or I want this movement to be like really slow and deliberate, like so that you bring your taste to the table when you're talking about like what you're looking for, even in like programming, like that you have specific like preferences when it comes to like implementation that are probably like it's hard to decide like specifically what the best structure would be, but you still like have a gut feeling that you can communicate uh to your other programmers or whatever.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you guys find that you're communicating with the rest of your team like quite often?
Yeah, it depends on the project because like some assignments you're just like off on your own in a corner for 2 weeks and come back like, hey, I did this thing. And other times like a lot of the time you're working on a really big system where like it's kind of confusing and it's going to save you a lot of time to just be like, hey, can you give me a 2 minute explanation of this versus like digging through the code and trying to figure out what the hell it's doing. Um, so I would say you if you're not communicating constantly, you probably should be. That's probably what I would say. It's gonna save you time.
Personally, I am very embedded in my team's design group. So I'm talking to non-engineers pretty much constantly. And when engineers have to do something related to gameplay, they are talking to me. So I do a lot of explaining design to engineers and a lot of explaining engineering to design. So I have to think a lot about how do we communicate these trade-offs? How do we make it clear, oh, there are big engineering costs to this, and how do we make it clear, oh, there's a big design need for this thing, whether or not it has high costs. So yeah, I'm in those conversations pretty constantly.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I always need to communicate a ton of, the little team that I work with, but um, I know that's very important to even bigger teams, especially now that they're devoting more resources to kind of well, forming smaller teams of more diverse groups of people. Um, uh, so what are your thoughts or like experiences with crunch and maintaining a healthy work-life balance?
I think I'm not entirely qualified to talk on this because like I've been an intern for all of the industry experience that I've got, and they don't crunch interns really that hard, at least in the companies that I work on. And also, I've been luckily I think I've been in like pre-production a lot of the time. Like I haven't been on the tail end of like we're releasing this game in 2 weeks, quick, we have to do all these things.
Mhm.
Like I'm lucky that I've gotten a soft introduction to game design or game programming when like we have time to talk with interns about like what you're doing wrong or what you're doing right. Uh, in general, though, I think that like the concept of crunch, like we all know, is bad because like there have been studies that like um if you keep crunching, you're literally going to do less work than if or your output will be worse than if you had just not crunched. Like because people are going to be so tired and so fatigued that like it doesn't get done how you think that it will. And if you are working on a project that's taking longer than expected, I'd just be in constant communication with your project manager, like, hey, this is getting done at this time. Maybe adjust our or like here's where I think it will get done. Maybe adjust our timeline so that like this and this can happen and like this person can take up some of my slack or whatever. Because people are there for you if you need to take a little break or something.
Yeah.
And also, maintaining a healthy work-life balance, I'd say like if you're really struggling with like a 9 to 5, I'd consider a remote job because like you still need to do the same amount of work or else you'll get fired. But like you can take breaks and like do your work at like midnight if you want to. And like I find that taking like an hour break every 3 hours or so really helps like my motivation to finish projects and like stay focused.
So I'm gonna open with a blanket statement, which is that I think crunch happening is a failure of production process at various
Yes.
levels.
Mm.
Like I don't think it's like, wow, we need these people to go faster, right? It is,
Yeah.
oh, we did a bad job budgeting what we can do in a certain period of time. Um, Now, with that said, I also think you shouldn't force yourself to crunch. Like, for instance, at my job, no one has ever said, Izzy, it's time for you to crunch. It's time for you to do
Yeah.
more work than you should. It's time for you to stay after a little bit late. But I have seen things get like pushed back or like off the schedule for the project because something just didn't really quite make it over the line. And then in the future, I have myself worked a little bit over the line to get something and to get something done, right? Because we all want to succeed. We want the product to succeed. We want our managers and our peers to think we're people who can get stuff done and get through a lot of work. But the problem is that's how you die. That's
Mm.
how you work yourself into hating the job. Um, and I can't say there's never, I mean, I can't say never do it ever. Because another reality that I've heard from other people, I've heard from designers, I've heard from engineers is, oh, working a little bit over is how I got something done that I think helped me get the position I'm in, right? And I can't tell you that you should never make those trade-offs and that they're never worth it, but I can say be careful. Because once you convince yourself that I can just do a little bit more and then it will be over, sometimes it's never over. There will
Yeah.
always be more work. The reward for working hard is more work, always. Um, I've found in the last couple of weeks, sometimes when I'm going to bed, when I close my eyes, I start thinking about content from the game. I start thinking about how to solve specific problems, how to fill specific gaps, how to make the product better. And that just makes my life worse, And it makes my life worse. It's not very time efficient, The amount of time in the middle of the night when I am sort of manically drifting away thinking about the game is not as productive as if I just did it during the day for less time. So you need to balance your own needs and desires about working hard and doing what you feel needs to be done at work, but also understanding if you push yourself too hard, if you make it chronic, if you make it the thing that is expected of you to meet a certain standard, you could be signing yourself up to doing that forever. And that could either make you hate the work we do or kill you.
Yeah.
And neither of those are good.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's always an interesting subject because I feel like crunch is one of those things where you're like it, the answer should be pretty definite, but it's hard because you hear from all sorts. Everybody loves, working on what they're doing, and it's hard to tell them to just stop when, it's something they want to really see through. And I know it's also difficult. Like in my experience, I've been a university student for the past 6 years. It's pretty much always crunch, but also it's
Yeah, yeah.
been somewhat, self-imposed.
I have had some experience with crunch on student projects, and like I think the research backs it up that like I literally, if I budgeted my time and like sat down and done it like 3 hours a day instead of like 12 hours and like or 3 hours a day over a course of a week versus like 12 hours in one day, then I would have gotten more done and it would have probably turned out better. But like, um, it's tough because like it's a slippery slope because like you need a lot of time to recover after crunch and you're not going to get that time because um more work's gonna come. Like as you said, like yeah, your reward for work is more work.
Absolutely. But thank you. I mean, I think those are some very insightful answers. Um, I guess carrying on with that, how do you feel that the industry has changed in the last 5 years? And do you have any sort of expectations, predictions to what might happen in the upcoming years?
So I'm going to start by saying three of us in the room, none of us were working in games 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, but I know some things. I know some things, and I think it'd be hard to specify a 5 year period that was significantly more eventful than the last 5 year period from right now.
Mhm.
Because 5 years ago we were still being affected by COVID happening, right? Like at a societal level. Um, and something big that happened in 2020 and 2021 is because so many people were home, the playership of games exploded. Like so many people were buying and playing games. It was this big surge in the market. And based on that surge in the market, there was a big expansion in investments. Um, so you have a bunch of firms that are investing in small studios. You have the big companies doing a big hiring boom. Everyone thinks that the line's going to keep going up forever, and then it didn't. And that's why in 2023 and 2024 and 2025 and this year, there have been so many layoffs in games. Not because games are failing, but because there was a big speculative bubble that popped almost immediately, and it's hurting a lot of people. And it means there's a lot of tumult in the hiring environment because you have a lot of talent that's been all mixed up and spun up. I think what we're seeing looking forward is, at some point, this is all going to settle. It's going to settle because in spite of all the tumult, the revenue of games has continued to be very high. Games are very successful as a market. Again, maybe not as successful as the speculation wanted it to be, but games are very successful as a market. So I think things are going to stabilize. We are in a higher saturation world than we were 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. It is harder to make a good medium or small size game, and by virtue of it being good, have confidence that it will sell well, because players just have so much to choose from, and discovery is difficult the more games there are. So I think what we're going to see and what we're already seeing is moving towards something I mentioned earlier, which is prioritizing kind of two classes of making games, uh, which is what's the market crash thing? Too big to fail. Making too big to fail games.
Yeah.
Um, like Grand Theft Auto 6. Grand Theft Auto 6, too big to fail. Um, versus on the flip side, making a lot more small to medium sized games. Um, because you can churn out more of those. You can see what people latch onto, and then you can expand that. You can build on that. You can create more content. You can make sequels. You can do other stuff. Like I think we're going to move towards taking more shots on goal to try to get our hooks into people, because it is too dangerous to make a big game that takes like 5 or 6 years to make and then just put it out in the market and then have it totally flop. Not because it's bad, but just because people have so many games to choose from. Whereas if you can, in the same time, make 3 games, you're more likely to have something that works, and then you can dedicate resources to building and reinforcing that. Um, and it's also worth noting that like AI and LLMs, that's a new thing, and it's going to continue being present. But it's remains incredibly unclear what that actually specifically looks like in terms of where our industry is going.
Yeah.
I know it's changing the patterns of hiring, but it is not currently actually clear what it is going to change about the products, or if the changes in hiring are going to continue to be true 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah. No notes on the history. That was perfect. Um, my contribution will be to take a guess on what is going to happen with AI. Um, I think that it's definitely one of the elephants in the room over the past 5 years, and we've seen it work a little bit in pre-production, which is not always good because like you have to be very careful to never forget a single asset in pre-production to make it into the final game, because like Expedition 33 lost awards just because I don't know if it was because they used it in pre-production or because they forgot like a single asset that was used in pre-production and it made it in the final game. Yeah. But it does help in pre-production. and it doesn't take anything away because like and first off, I'm an AI hater like everyone else. I would rather it not exist. But if it does exist, like um it does help in pre-production because like say a designer wants to test out like an enemy, I then they could test out the enemy concept of like a zombie. This is an example that I heard, like a zombie, a really tall, thin zombie in a shooter. They could generate that model or based off the concept art of the artist, and uh, like realize that hey, it's really hard to shoot a tall, thin enemy, and it walking really slow actually isn't that fun. So then they take that information back to the artist, and the artist saved 2 weeks by not having to make a 3D model, and the designer got a more accurate picture than like what would have been like a rectangle. My hopeful prediction is that like it stays in pre-production and we as a community continue to trumpet the our desire for human-made work because we've been pretty um vocal about like our distaste for AI in games, and I think that's good. I think if we continue to vote with our money on games that are made by humans, then maybe like uh we will continue to go down that path of human-made games.
Yep.
I have
Nice.
another AI opinion, but I know we have other questions, so we can come back to it.
You can go ahead with your AI opinions. We'll
Okay.
be going into some questions from the folks in the chat after this.
Oh, okay, cool.
So,
So I think as engineers specifically, we are in a position where talking about AI is a little bit different than for I think other people in games because I think it's clear from the engineering perspective that AI as it's been being used right now on like a cultural level is a buzzword, right? There's not really a coherent understanding of what AI is. When we're talking about AI, it's not always clear what we're referring to. And I think there are a lot of things that are AI that have obviously been involved in the work we do in big ways and small ways for a long time and will almost certainly continue to be true, right? So for me, I don't like code with Claude or anything, but I know IDEs for years have been building like IntelliSense and things like that, right? And like line completion and suggestions and that sort of stuff. And that is like generative AI, you know? I think there are these like larger creative questions that are also relevant to, for instance, generative art AI when it comes to that in terms of like intelligent decision making, being aware of what you're actually populating your product with. And I think when you start using uh Claude and other sort of things that are like making code at scale, I think that becomes like more of a question, but it is still, I think, a harder distinction to make in terms of, I think the questions of like attribution are less clear cut than art, just in terms of our standards as engineers are and have historically been different. Um, but I'm not super confident in like AI code as a direction, not just because I'm not confident in the code, but also there's the question of how do we develop these how do we develop low level engineers to become higher level engineers, right? Because I think the skill of using the generative code AI well is basically becoming a manager. It's becoming a manager to understanding the values, it's overseeing a lot of volume of work that you're not directly doing. And that is a skill that is built on an understanding of how you do the work directly.
yeah.
So I think even if we put everything ethical aside, even if we put everything in terms of the sourcing, and in terms of environmental impact, we put all of that to the side. There's still the question of like, how do we incorporate this in a way that is sustainable just from like a skills perspective and from a perspective where we can actually train people in a way where they are using these tools well. And I question if we can even do that. And I've talked with people at my work who are interested in AI, who have done AI in their own projects, who are interested in integrating AI, and they don't even really have answers to those questions, which in my mind is a reason to be cautious around the adoption of AI at scale.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even if you're using AI to code or whatever, it's important that you know what you're doing in the first place. And I know I've certainly been worried if, you know, thinking about the people that are going into university nowadays, learning computer science, and yeah, I just hope that they're learning computer science, you know. Um, but yeah, I guess to go on with some of the audience questions. Um, I believe both of you are experienced with Unreal. We have kind of a bit of an Unreal specific question here. Um, with Unreal announcing that they're phasing out blueprints for Verse, how would you recommend uh, folks balancing using the two systems in preparation for job applications, um, or etc.? Um, essentially, do you think people are going to continue using blueprints? Do you think it's important to learn blueprints as a skill, even though they're going to be phasing that out in the future?
I think for a little bit, yeah. Like it's even in Unreal 6, they're still going to be using blueprints for a little bit before they phase it out. So maybe like I'd say for 6 months, if you still want to get hired, probably still know some blueprints. But past that, it's kind of unclear if they're how hard they're going to commit to this. But I would learn some um definitely like lean towards C++ because C++ is still going to be there. And I forget what their specific language is called, but like uh,
There's Verse, yeah.
yeah, verse. Yeah, do some projects in verse and put verse on your resume. Like, hey, I know verse, and that will definitely strengthen your odds.
Yeah, I agree with Austin. It's probably good to like lean into Verse and lean into C++ because those seem to be the things that are going to continue to be around. I would still like be relatively familiar with blueprints because there are still people that are working with it, and because frankly, the choice to deprecate it seems kind of stupid, and most people agree on that. So there's a chance they backpedal. So it's worth also preparing for that
Yeah,
possibility.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think prioritize the things that they say they're going to be doing because even if it takes some time, I think companies are going to either be moving towards that or thinking about moving towards that. So it's always good as an engineer to be like looking forward and understand kind of what the state of the frontier is, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, and I think we had another question about sort of AI use, but I think we went over that pretty thoroughly. Um, so I'll continue on to another question. Um, there, uh, have you guys had any kind of like particular experience, where you wish that you or your team had done something differently? Any kind of like specific experience in your work, uh, that you can kind of talk about, I suppose?
yeah. I had an experience in like one of my earlier internships where it was a student run sort of game, so everyone was like every role was a student except for like the project manager, and we were building the game really quickly, so we didn't get a lot of chance to like talk amongst ourselves about like what our visions were. And I think that like we um all went forward with like a separate understanding of what this game was going to be. And once we started like building it, um there like you could sense some frustration that like certain parts weren't meeting the expectations of certain people. And like I think as a solution to that, what I would have done differently, because it did ultimately end up in like a fight. I would first of all voice your own frustrations, um, if you do have any, and if you really want to go above and beyond, try to pick up on other people's like signals that they're frustrated and say like, hey, maybe we should talk about this, maybe we should get on the same level before it all is like bottled up and explodes. So talk about it before it's too late is what I would do differently.
My answer is related. I think Austin's answer is sort of on the like social side of communication.
Yeah,
But I think more even just on the product side, like a game lives or dies on team alignments. There's so many small decisions everyone involved in a game is making all the time. And if the people on your product don't have at least a very similar thing in their head of what this game is and who this game is for and what would be good in the game, what would be bad in the game. If they're not on the same page about those things, you get something muddled and like self-contradictory and like not as good as it could be. Um, like I come from, my undergrad was not games at all. My undergrad was just computer science math. And then my grad school was games and was very design and direction oriented. So in grad school, they were like, you got to think about pillars. You got to think about razor statements. You have to plan things out. You have to understand how it all builds towards these shared elements. And then, when I went into the industry at my current studio, I will say on the game I was working on, I didn't feel like we were always super aligned. And I was like, sometimes in a conversation, I would be like, hey, I asked every person on this team, what are the three pillars of the game? How many people on this team do you think could actually give me even two of those three pillars correctly? Because I stand firm of the like 30 people on the team at the time, maybe four. Maybe four could have done that. Um, and I feel like that leads to people developing in different directions and even incredibly competent people making smart and good decisions. If you don't have pillars or if your pillars are too loose, um, can be interpreted two different ways. And you're not like talking with people and syncing up and aligning and just constantly adjusting the vision of the game in your head so it's all as unified as possible. You just end up with something messy, right?
Yeah.
Because a bunch of people make a bunch of decisions and the decisions don't really make sense together. And I think that can kill any game of any size.
Do you have any kind of advice on how to maintain that sort of alignment within a team?
I mean, you need to have a culture of just like socializing how you're feeling about the game.
Mhm.
Ideally, you need a director who can have a clear vision and can talk to people often and is has a complete enough vision of what the game is and a good enough understanding of like social conversation that by talking to someone they can get a good understanding of whether or not they're in alignment, and if not they can either align that individual person or they can think about, hey, do we need to do some big team alignment and adjust around some things. They can think about, hey, what are our pillars? Should I remind people of our pillars? Should we change our pillars? Right, because at some point as a director you might realize there's a version of the game in my head
Mhm.
and then there's a version of the game in the head of everyone other than me that is actually pretty aligned but different than what I have. And there can be the question of, do we change that or do we align towards
Yeah.
the version of the game everyone else has, right? But I think it's like choosing priorities in what you're working on, making those important, making sure everyone knows them, making sure the decisions that are made align with those, and having a person or persons kind of responsible for enforcing that. It would usually be a game director. It could be discipline leads. Um, but really, it just needs to be made uh, a priority, even though it's very much like soft work in terms of there's no like specific discipline, there's no piece of content or piece of code
Yeah.
that is the vision of the game, right? There is this ultimately very social and documenting based activity of just keeping people aligned.
Yeah. No, and I think maintaining that alignment is always a pretty difficult thing to do. Even, I mean, it's been hard enough in my small teams. I can't
Certainly.
imagine
Yeah.
even, bigger teams, bigger studios.
If you have the luxury of a small team, then I would say like um maybe have everyone in like and you're just starting an idea from ground zero. I'd say like have everyone involved in like the generation of that idea and like at least have the designers inform people like this is important because like this because of X, Y, and Z and like this is what's gonna just carry the message of the game home. And then like programmers like when you're making your dirty build or like when designers are like coming up with ideas like for a massive open world, programmers can be like, hey, maybe we need to scale this down because like it's gonna be pretty challenging, or artists we could also say that, or like um I think that like coming up with an idea from ground zero, if everyone's contributing, then it's going to make everyone's jobs easier, um, because they're all voicing their concerns of what's going to be difficult and what could actually be easier than expected from each discipline.
Yeah, and I think the smaller the team you have, the more like little annoying mental exercise you can do to see if everyone is kind of aligned. Like you could have everyone sit down and be like, "Hey, write down kind of a made up experience of like 5 minutes of playing our game, and just see what they focus on, see what they think about even before the game exists.
Yeah,
And those are sorts of things. Obviously, on a huge team, you can't make everyone do that, but on a small team, there are a lot of things you can do to just say, hey, here's our mental image of what we're doing, why we're doing it, how playing it is supposed to make you feel. There are a lot of things you can do to move towards alignment on that, but it is a thing you have to think about as a type of discipline on a project,
yeah,
even if there's not like a material output.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that's, you know, not always thought about so much. Um, so I should follow up with another question. Um, there are, a lot of specialties in the field of engineering. How should somebody go about finding and learning about what kind of niche they enjoy? Um, I know, especially Izzy, you have the title of uh, you know, technical designer. How did you find out about that?
You just kind of got to do stuff. Like it's hard to, that's difficult to say. And depending on what happens, it might require like a longer journey through more things. But like technical designer was not a phrase I knew until I was in grad school. It's not something I was doing until I'd already been at my current job for a while. Where like I started my job as like a generalist engineer, and I was doing a combination of gameplay stuff. I did some UI stuff. I did some audio hookup stuff, right? Like I think you just need to find opportunities to do a bunch of different type of work. Um, I think you need to talk to people who are doing the work. A truth in life is that there are more jobs than you think there are that exist in the world. And there's not really a way to learn them just from first principles, but like just talk to people who do something that seems like it's interesting, and then they might be like, "Hey, after talking to you, maybe you're actually interested in this." And then once they tell you that, you can go and find someone who does that, talk to them, right? Like that's very much what happened with me in grad school, where I talked to a lot of people and I found a niche that was interesting to me based on getting in there and doing the work and talking to more experienced people from the industry, um, and trying stuff out and seeing what I really, really, really didn't like.
Yeah, I'd say talk to the like if you have the option, if like depending on your education environment, like I know at WPI there were no classes any prerequisites, and you could take whatever class you want from any discipline. So I had the option to like try literally everything and see what I liked, because like I and a lot of people come to games because it merges so many different things. Like it merges art, it merges design, it merges writing, it merges programming, and even more stuff than that, like audio. Uh, so even if you don't end up liking it, like it still builds your T-shaped specialty, like we were saying earlier. So it's not a complete loss. And just if you don't have the option to take classes yourself, then like talk to people who are near any of your preferred areas. And if you, I'd say if you talk to a couple people and like them as a person, then maybe you'd like them working together, and maybe you like what they do, and you would enjoy it also. Because like similar people like similar things. So yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I think, yeah, some of
I
the most
found cold emailing people very effective. You have to cold email a lot of people.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
But like in undergrad, when I was interested in games, even though I wasn't doing it, I just made a list of games I liked and I emailed all the people who made all those games. And I got like two responses. But like Brian from Dodge Roll, the people who make Head to the Gungeon,
Mhm.
he responded, and I had a number of very long email chains with him. And that was just because I emailed a bunch of random people. I wasn't
Yeah.
even directly involved in games at all at that point. Um, and then in grad school, for my capstone, we had to have an external advisor, which is something I've done for other people. But for me, I was like, I know the type of game I'm making. I'm just going to make a list of games like this, and I'm going to email or tweet or message all of those people. And one person responded, and he was like, "No one's ever asked me to mentor anything. I'll do it." And that just works
Spectacular.
sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Just message a bunch of people.
Yeah. No, and I know I've had similar luck, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, for instance. Yeah, you might have to do a lot of it, but you've bound to find somebody. Um, but yeah, and I guess we're coming close to sort of like ending here. Um, what advice do you have for someone who is uh not sure if they want to be an engineer or a designer or vice versa? I guess there's a lot of similarities to kind of what we talked about.
Yeah. I'd say this is a hot take. If you don't really want to be a designer, like you're really, really confident in it, then I would say start as an engineer because you get to make design decisions as an engineer, like a gameplay programmer. Like you're still making plenty of design decisions, and you're also like I think it's also a more stable and less competitive job market than designers. So like if you're really set on a designer or like and you've tried it out and you like it, then go for it. But if you're kind of stuck between the two, tactical designer is a great title for that. Like I also technical designer in my LinkedIn because that's what I want to do. But yeah, if you're like 30% on design, then I'd say be an engineer first. And because that's at least an easy way to enter a company. And then you can like because once you're in a company, you can make lateral moves pretty easily. Like or at least like put in your application for one and like they'll move you the second that a spot opens up.
Yeah, I would say pretty similarly. Like the bar for how excited you should be about design is higher than engineering, because also engineering pays more. Can't ignore that engineering pays more. Um, but especially depending on the studio you're at, you might have a lot of opportunities to do design stuff. I do design all the time. Um, I want to say most of this last week, I was doing more design stuff than I was doing engineer stuff. It's always informed by engineering, and I can think about what's happening on the system level better than the designers can because they aren't looking at the code. Um, but yeah, I would say you should be really into designing and like if you're kind of interested in engineering, on the flip side, like don't torture yourself by doing a job you hate. If you don't really know you want to do engineering either, like if you really love design, but you're like coding's okay, I took a class, then like engineering isn't that much easier to get into, that you should pivot away from something you really love to do it either. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable. I know that, like, you know, for me, I did undergrad computer science. I love engineering. I also really love design and to take design roles. So I know that this is one of those questions that has always been a little bit difficult for me, where I'm like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, what do I really look for?" Um,
Like I
uh,
think I'm one of those people who I'm like sometimes I think better through coding it out.
mhm,
And
Yeah.
like if you're that type of total nerd, like be an engineer, like it's just gonna it's just kind of a safer choice. It's a safer bet. But also design's cool. And when I get to do design, I love getting to do design, but I also love getting to be one of the people who makes the design work, right? And I love being one of the people who can talk to designers about, hey, here's some things about our system. Maybe we could tweak this so that it's more feasible for what we have, but still sort of meets your goals. right? I think there's a lot of need, there's a lot of desire, there's a lot of value in engineers who do care about design on games. So I don't think it's a muscle you'll abandon entirely by leaning into engineering.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yes, we're coming up, you know, close to our ending time in about five
Audience, where are
minutes.
your questions? Audience, two of you have asked questions. More of you ask things. I know you want to know things. We're at the point where you could ask stupid things. We have 5 minutes left.
Yeah, any stupid questions are welcome too. Um, but I suppose in the meantime, I mean, did you guys have any other general advice you'd like to share with students who are interested in doing engineering and games?
Um, Document your work because I know as game design or as game designer development or programming students, we do a lot of work. Make sure that that you can present it and show that you do that work so that you can enter the industry and start your portfolio earlier than you think and constantly keep it updated. That's what I'd say.
Play more games. Play more
Hmm.
Video
games. Think about
games.
what they're doing. Um, I don't necessarily do this, but you probably should also take notes on games as
Yeah.
well. Um, so much of being able to work on games is being able to think on about games, it's being able to know what you can steal from games. Uh, because, as much as we like to think of anything we work on as being cool and novel, there's nothing new under the sun, and there's no shame in like building on the shoulders of giants. So it's good to know what is happening in games. It's good to understand the interactions between those things, whether you're an engineer or a designer. I play a lot of games. It was Steam Next Fest last week, and I downloaded 70 games, 70 demos, and I've got about 15 more to work through. Um, because that's just something I personally really
Yeah,
value. Is just working through a lot of different stuff.
absolutely. I totally get you there. I mean, God, I love playing games. I love playing different games though. You know, I know I find it I'm not the best at, just staying on one game, focused on that one thing. I like variety.
Yeah,
Honestly, good.
and
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and to be clear, this comes back to the I
Uh,
or T-shaped thing that Austin mentioned in terms of just like your work. I think it can also be really valuable to really commit to playing a specific game or a specific type of game so you can really understand it, because that's a great opportunity if you end up working on that game or in that
yeah,
genre of game. But I think even then, even if you spend 80% of your time on one game, you shouldn't be spending 100% of your time on one game. You need to understand its neighbors even.
yeah. Um, Also, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, I think you kind of said what I was thinking too. Like, I would say play a wider variety of games than you probably like. Go out there and play a random game that you probably wouldn't touch otherwise, because like even if you don't like it, you can figure out what you don't like about it and never do that in your game. So like, yeah, I'd say like a wide variety is always helpful, and it helps you like pull from different places and like make a unique product that you wouldn't have made otherwise.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yes, quick fun fact, do you guys have something you're playing right now?
I've been playing a lot of Slay the Spire 2 in early
Yeah.
access. It's fun to see the changes they make. Like I follow their devlogs quite heavily, and like I get to see like the card changes, or like they wiped an entire boss which because it was too complicated. Like it's fun to play on the beta branch and see what they're cooking up. But Slay the Spire was my favorite game, and Slay the Spire 2 was everything I wanted and more. So I'm having a ton of fun with that.
You need to put more time into Slay the Spire too. Slay the Spire is about tied for the game I have the most hours in on Steam. I've got about
Yeah.
1,500 hours in it. But I've also got about 1,500 hours in Terraria, so they're about neck and neck. But yeah, the door maker, they got rid of door maker.
Yeah, yeah.
An interesting thing about door maker is not just that people were complaining, but like specifically if you looked at Chinese reviews, like most negative Chinese reviews were about door maker.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because it's really one of the only ways that they have to like make themselves heard is like through negative reviews.
yeah.
Um, so it was a bunch of stuff about this sucks. Uh, uh, do game devs know how to make a perfect door? A lot of jokes, a lot of memes that I'm not sure if the memes translated. Um, but it was interesting to look into that. It's interesting to see it
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. That was definitely interesting seeing all of that with Slays Fire too. But anyway, we're coming up against time now, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. Thank you so much to the both of you for being here and being in this panel, answering your questions.
Anyone watching, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can. I give you permission. There are about
And
10 of you watching.
Yeah. Thank you
that's
guys for
very
watching and
important.
thank you for hosting.
Yeah.
You can connect with me too. I'm trying to get to that 500 plus where like you get where it looks like you have a ton of connections.
But absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Connect with them and, reach out to them with any questions. Thank you all so much.